A very good evening to our audience today. Sorry. I'm very glad that we have such a wonderful and great turnout. My name is Jeannie, and I'm your moderator for today's episode of Ask Me Anything webinar series. Tonight, we are going to find out more on financial mistakes to avoid when planning for your loved ones. So prioritizing our loved ones is crucial. Estate and legacy planning ensure that your assets are distributed accordingly to your wish after your passing while reducing financial and emotional burdens for your loved ones. So what are the potential mistakes that we can avoid? What are the facts or frictions about estate and legacy planning? I'm sure everyone has some burning questions. May I request you to type your question in the bottom Q&A button, and the speaker will come to you at the end where we have our Q&A segment. And for the audience, we are live on Zoom and Facebook. Before I introduce our guest for tonight, I must ensure and assure all of you here that there shall be no selling during today's webinar. It is completely educational, so let's keep this session lighthearted. Sit back and relax. Enjoy your time here while the speakers share some of their thoughts and views on mistakes to avoid when planning for your loved ones. So, if you are watching us, please share with your other friends who you think would benefit from this fireside chat, where you can ask all your questions about financial planning for your loved ones live to our very own financial specialist. Okay, I'm very thrilled to introduce three of our financial specialists today with different experience and perspective. And they are Claudia Tan. She's married with a mother of 3 kids. And Elijah, our only male guy, our only male speakers today, married and currently has no kids. And Janice is single like me. So each speaker will provide their unique viewpoints for today's topic on estate planning and legacy planning. So firstly, we would like to introduce Claudia Tan, our Financial Services Director. Claudia, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Oh, hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session, and thanks, Jeannie, for introducing me. I'm a Financial Services Director in the financial industry for nearly 20 years. So all this while, I have been providing effective financial planning to many individuals and also help many of them to better understand the pros and cons, the do and don'ts when planning for their loved one. I believe some of us here may experience analysis paralysis. Basically, it means think too much, analyze too much, but no action was taken because the situation for our loved one are unique and we can't decide how to address all the concerns accordingly. We can handle the situation when we are alive, but how to handle the situation when we pass on is a concern that all of us have. So I hope today I can provide some ideas and solutions for everyone who had tuned in. Thank you.
Wow, Claudia is an award-winning financial service director, over 18 years of practical experience in financial advisory. As you can see, I believe combined with a qualification from the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioner, it makes her a trusted expert in her field. And I think we believe that her extensive knowledge, experience, and dedication to her client make her respected figures in the financial industry. And of course, her contribution to the wealth management and legacy planning are highly valuable, especially after today's webinar. Thank you, Claudia, for a wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
Next, we have our Elijah Lee, our Senior Financial Services Manager. Elijah, to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Jeannie, for introducing me. I'm Elijah, and I'm a Senior Financial Services Manager with Phillip Securities. I've been working in Phillip for the past 7 years. Some of you may have read my answers on personal finance questions on the Seedly platform. Some of you may have heard me on radio on Monday 89.3 FM. Some of you maybe even have read my interviews in the Straits Times. So I'm actually based in the Westgate Investor Center, and I often meet my clients there. And tonight, I feel very strongly about estate and legacy planning because I've come across so many families that were left with a mess to sort out because there were no instructions in place after someone passed on. And in some cases, I've even seen families fall into debt, just due to poor planning when a family member becomes ill. So this is definitely a topic that I feel is very important for all of us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Elijah, for your insightful introduction. And of course, the sharing of extensive experience in the financial industry. I believe many of you would actually agree and also agree with you that careful estate and legacy planning can indeed contribute to family harmony and prevent financial difficulties in difficult times. When individuals take their times to plan their financial, create will, and establish trust and communicate their wishes to their loved ones, I believe it can really help alleviate stress and potential conflict down the road. Okay, let's introduce our third speaker of the night, Janice Tan, our Senior Wealth Manager. Janice?
Hello, everybody. My name is Janice. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Phillip, for organizing this. Thank you, Claudia and Elijah, for having me here. I'm in this industry for about 20 years, started off this career in my late 20s. My clients are mostly through words of mouth, recommendation by my clients, which I am very, very thankful. I seek to get the best value for my clients and specializing in retirement planning. So by extension on retirement planning, it will be estate planning and legacy planning. Unless we can count when we're going to see God, we will surely leave behind some financial assets and liabilities. So in fact, by doing proper financial planning, we can also help to minimize or better yet, avoid leaving any liability behind.
Thank you, Janice, for your warm introduction. I think it's great to have you here with us as well. I think your almost 2 decades of experience in the financial industry speak volumes about your expertise and your dedication to your client as well. So I understand that you are actually specializing in retirement planning and now extending to legacy planning and estate planning, which I believe all are crucial aspects of financial security. And I believe your expertise in these areas will be valuable to our audience and for me as well. So that's the introduction for our guest tonight. Before we start our first question of the night, let's look at this article from Straits Times. I think dying without a will. Maybe Claudia, can you share a bit more on this article with the audience?
Well, the first sentence from the article says that for high net worth individual, wealth transfer and estate planning can be a complicated affair. But for ordinary folks, it can be as simple as making a will. Yet a survey has found that more than 48% of Singaporeans do not have one. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind when I read this article is, without a will, the estate of the deceased will be distributed according to the Intestate Succession Act. It is an act that predetermines your estate distribution if you choose not to write a will. But is this what you really want? It doesn't matter whether you are a high net worth individual or an ordinary person. When you are alive, whatever you have is called an asset. Upon passing, it becomes an estate. It will be passed down to someone eventually. The priority of distribution according to the intestate law will be to your immediate family member. So for example, if you are married with children, your estate will be distributed to them, but nothing to your parents. Is this what you really want? When we are alive, we make decisions on many things, who to support, how much to provide, etc., etc. But when we are gone, we can also make decisions by giving instruction by a will. A will is actually a piece of document where we pen down our last wishes. So why do nearly half of Singapore population do not have their wills? Perhaps they are not aware that a will has to be an official document. This is my thought. Jeannie?
Thank you, Claudia, for sharing the importance of the article and discussing the critical issues of will and estate planning. I think it's evidence from the article and your insight that a significant portion of the population in Singapore does not have a will in place. I think which can lead to unintended consequences and distribution of assets. So let's find out a little bit from our audience today by doing a little poll. I'll flash out and read out the poll right now. So what are the reasons that might have hindered you from making end-of-life plans? Is it option 1, I don't know about it? 2, I'm procrastinating because it's complex? 3, I'm not sure where to start? Or 4, I don't like to discuss sensitive topics? If you're on the FB, you can comment in the chat box on your answer, or if you're in Zoom, just click on your answer and we will wait for 1 to 2 minutes for the result to come in. Okay, the results are out. So let's see what the audience thinks tonight. Oh wow, look like most of our audience choose option 3. I'm not sure where to start. And I think followed by I'm procrastinating because it's complex, which is option 2. In that case, let's start off with our first question of the evening to help you on the previous questions that is hindering you from making the end of life planning. So, what is estate planning and how does it differ from legacy planning? Claudia?
Okay. Now, if you ask ChatGPT or Google, both artificial intelligence will give you very detailed answer. But in a nutshell, estate planning is more of instruction on how you want to distribute your asset upon your passing. Of course, the planning will include naming your beneficiary, settlement of final income tax and debt, along with other consideration like guardianship for minor or even arrangement for your cats and dogs. Estate planning will also include will writing, asset listing, and appointing executor and trustee. Whereas legacy planning, on the other hand, is a type of estate planning that allows you to pass on your wealth smoothly and effectively to your children and grandchildren. So when you understand both types of planning, you will realize that when you are doing your estate planning, you are in fact doing your legacy planning together. You are ensuring that your wealth can be passed down smoothly to your children, a smooth wealth transition to your future generation. But if you are solely focusing on legacy planning, for example, you may have bought a lot of insurance policy and investment, hoping to benefit a few generations upon your passing. But if you did not write it down in a will, then your wishes may not happen because your asset will be passed down under the intestate law. What do you think, Elijah?
Well, yeah, I think indeed estate planning is about how you want your assets to be distributed. I'll say it focuses on the what and the who. So for example, if I would like to ensure that the payouts in an insurance policy that I have go to my infant son, right? So legacy planning, I would say it focuses on the when and the why. So in this context, I may, for example, say that I would like the payouts to be used to create a lifetime stream of income for my son when my son turns 21, so that I can ensure that my son can get some support if I'm no longer around. Not that I have a son, okay, but I'll say both are intertwined, but their purposes are subtly different. So while you can do estate planning, leaving out legacy planning may actually lead to your beneficiaries being worse off, especially if the assets are mismanaged and they end up being used in a manner that you did not intend for. Yeah, Janice, any thoughts?
Well said, Claudia and Elijah. Estate planning usually involves financial wealth and assets. It is not just the what, but also the who and especially the how on what you are leaving behind. That is why will writing is part of estate planning. The will is actually your wish after death. Legacy planning, on your hand, is something meaningful that you want to leave behind. It can be financial as well as non-financial, like something of great sentimental value or like wisdom, etc. Back to you, Jeannie.
Indeed, I think the three speakers has actually highlighted a crucial point. I think it's not enough to have ideas about how you want your assets and legacy to be managed. You need to take concrete steps through estate planning to ensure that your wishes are carried out effectively. And by that, in the process of estate planning, we are essentially incorporating legacy planning, as you are not only determining what to leave, but also how and what to do so, which I think it answers the poll 1 question. This is to ensure that your value, wishes, and actually your sentimental legacies are preserved. So it's a proactive and responsible way to manage your assets and leave a meaningful legacy in ensuring your intentions are met and that your family is actually well taken care of in the future. So let's move on to our next question. What are the key elements encompassed by estate and legacy planning? Elijah?
Okay, let me take this one first. I would say there are indeed actually quite a few key elements to consider. So while most people will actually think about the legal and tax implications of estate planning, like will and all that, right? And of course, many people also consider the inheritance and asset transfer aspect. There are in fact other components that are also important. For example, income transfer, which is something that I think is not talked about a lot. If you're no longer around, why should your income stream stop, right? Why can't it be passed on to the next generation? How will it be passed on? How much control does the next generation get? Are they allowed to get the asset? Do they get control of it? Do they get to only consume the income of the asset? So you have multiple beneficiaries. Another thing is like, how would you distribute in a fair manner? So everyone in every generation needs to feel equal. And if they don't, then that's when problems start occurring. So there's this saying in Chinese that wealth doesn't last beyond 3 generations. I think some of you may be familiar with that saying. And in reality, it's really because the first generation starts to build the wealth, the second generation continues to build it, and the third generation divides it. So I would say proper estate and legacy planning will ensure that this wealth doesn't just stay in the family, it actually multiplies and it will enrich future generations. So for example, I'm now actually working with a client whose mom actually left behind a small 7-figure sum for her. And the good thing is there were very specific instructions on how to use that money. And because of that, she can actually look forward to the rest of her life, knowing that cash flow is no longer a problem, and that's really what good planning can do for you. Yeah. Janice, any thoughts?
Yeah. For the key elements, point 1 is know what you have, your list of assets, what you want to give, who you want to give to, how much you want to give to who, etc. So after knowing all the above, get it documented legally to state your wishes after death. Write a will, create trust, do up a lasting power of attorney, the LPA, sign up the Advanced Medical Directive, the AMD for short. Also, guardianship. Who will take care of your underage children should both you and your spouse pass on together? Who can you trust to nurture and provide for your children? I'll pass to Claudia to share more. Claudia?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Janice and Elijah. Now, after understanding the differences and importance of both types of planning, the first question that most people would ask is, how much does it cost to write a will? $200, $500, or $1,000? Now, most of the people are not familiar with the process to clear the estate. They are also not familiar with the cost and the processing time involved in clearing the estate. Did you know that it can be cheaper to clear your estate when you have a will than without a will? Estate duty in Singapore has been removed for death on and after 15 February 2008. But this does not mean that we can clear our estate without paying any legal costs, such as court fees and lawyer fees. We still must pay the fees when we engage them. When it comes to estate and legacy planning, we must not miss out these few important elements, which include identifying your beneficiary, which means that other than your children, do you want to include your parents and your spouse? The impact of passing your asset to each of them. For example, the pros and cons of giving lump sum of maybe 1 million to your 18-year-old son. Do you think he can handle such a huge sum of money? Do you have sufficient fund to cover your outstanding loans? Can your beneficiary handle overseas asset? And what are the overseas estate duty? So how much does it cost to clear our estate, and what are the funeral expenses? These are some important points that everyone must not miss out. In our experience, if your will does not cover all these points, then the process tends to be more messy and costly. Back to you, Jeannie.
Thanks, Claudia. So now we know that the key elements of encompassed by estate and legacy planning. So I think it's essential to access this element comprehensively. Document your wish legally and plan for various scenarios to ensure your assets are distributed according to your intention and their loved ones are kept in the best possible way.
Yes.
So now I will pose our next questions for the day. What are your biggest concerns when it comes to your end of life plans? Is it option 1? Financial securities for my loved ones? Or option 2, managing end of life medical expenses? Or option 3, passing on my assets to the right beneficiary? Option 4, preserving my legacy and values? And the last one, option 5, avoiding the burdens of decision making for my family. So if you're on Facebook, please comment on the chat box on your answer, and same if you're on Zoom, just click on the answer. We'll wait for 1 to 2 minutes for the result to come in. Oh, wow. The results are out. So let's see. Most of our clients actually chose option 3, passing on my assets to the right beneficiary. I think which is of a concern to most of our audience here today. And I think it follows by avoiding the burden of decision making for my family. In that case, we'll move on to our next question. What are the consequences of neglecting legacy planning? Claudia?
Yeah. Well, I guess many of us here will agree that when our loved one pass on, we will be sad and we need to handle a lot of emotional adjustment. But besides emotion, we will also need to handle everything that the deceased has left behind, which is his or her estate. But do we know exactly what they have? How many bank accounts do they have? 5 or 10 bank accounts? How many insurance policy do they have? And from which insurance company? Then do they have any investment, any property? Are all their assets in Singapore only or including overseas? So sometimes we can't even list down our own asset on the spot. So how do we expect others to know exactly what they have? Even though we may know what we have, I don't think most of us would go around and tell our beneficiary the detail of our asset. I myself don't do that. So if something happened to us today, the only way for our family member to find out our asset is by asking the insurance company or the banks or the investment house and even Singapore Land Authority to find out whether we have more than one house or not. They will also have to contact IRAS to clear our outstanding tax, make an announcement on newspaper to ask creditor to come forward, so on and so forth. And it is a lot of work. And some of us may think that by doing nomination for all our insurance policy is good enough. This is completely wrong because it is not the responsibility of the insurance company to constantly check on the status of the life insured and automatically deliver the payout to the beneficiary. It has to be on a claim basis, meaning the beneficiary or executor must approach the respective insurance company and file the claim accordingly. The consequences of neglecting estate planning and legacy planning can be messy. What do you think, Janice?
Well, neglect, any form of neglect is always no good. Be it house, relationship health, including planning, be it financial planning or estate planning. Besides the mess in the midst of grief and trauma, there is always a possibility of creating disharmony in family. Then they are all your loved ones. You leave behind assets for them because you love them. Certainly not to create disharmony among your loved ones. And what if no planning is done? Your hard-earned money ended up with somebody you really, really don't like just because that someone is related to you. Or worse, what if a parent passed on, left a huge lump sum for a young adult son who lacks the maturity to manage it, got scammed by people? Or worse, the son bought a racing car, crashed the car, etc., etc. Elijah, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I would say that there are definitely plenty of potential consequences. To me, I say the most devastating of which is that actually your intentions are not manifested to the next generation. If you don't plan ahead, right, your children may be caught in a difficult situation. For example, if they're very young, they have no guardian. That's not a good thing. Your dependents may suffer because maybe they might face delays in inheriting your assets, which can take months, even years. Actually, I'm working. Yeah, this brings to mind a situation I'm working now. I'm working with this young lady. The mom passed away about 3 years ago with a will. And even till today, the mom's shares aren't even transferred to this young lady yet, even though it's meant to be, right? So, and of course, tax consequences will be another consideration, as Claudia mentioned earlier. So yeah, basically, even if you have a will in place, if you don't leave instructions behind on how to manage your assets, they can be squandered. And I think one of the consequences will be that the next generation, right, will have to rebuild that ocean of wealth from scratch. And that's going to take a very, very long time. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Back to you, Jeannie.
Thanks, Elijah. I think based on the example mentioned by all of you, I think the message is very clear. The assets and legacy planning are essential not only for safeguarding of assets, but also for measuring the well-being and harmony of our loved ones after one's passing. So I believe the consequences of neglecting these crucial steps can be devastating. So for the audience who already have a will, you might want to check if this is done correctly and is the instruction clear. You may want to review your will again to ensure that the planning was done correctly to avoid the examples that was shared previously. So now let's move on to our next question. Is the exit legacy planning important for single? Just like me being single, I would like to know the questions for this answer as well. Janice, can you start by sharing your views?
Yeah, I'll start since I'm single. Of course, it's
Yeah.
important. With increasing awareness and inclusiveness on diversity, family is no longer and not always a happy father plus a happy mother and happy siblings. Family comes in all shapes and sizes. Single with blended family, single with internationally mobile family, single with a rich dad that has a mistress, and it was your mom that single-handedly brought you up, single with no surviving parents, but only close to one of the many siblings. How about your favorite niece, your uncle who loves you so much when you were a kid? And how about faith organization like your temple, church, or mosque, etc.? And how about charitable organization like SPCA? How about you? What do you think, Elijah?
Well, yeah, I say it's definitely important. Being single does not mean that we do not have dependents or a person that we care about, or even causes, right, that we are passionate about. If you're no longer around, I would say, your loved ones still need to live. So I find that sometimes the impact that you leave behind can be very meaningful, provided that you've ensured it will happen, right? So when you're around, you can make it happen, and planning ensures that if something unexpected happens to you, then what you want to happen can still happen as you had intended. Just because you're not around tomorrow doesn't mean that your dreams and wishes have to go with you, right? Claudia, your thoughts?
Yeah, if you care about your loved one and if you truly want to benefit someone, it doesn't matter whether you are single or married. Anyone should definitely do estate and legacy planning. We hope to leave a meaningful legacy, not just the monetary valuable, but also the values in life. If you are married, you will mostly focus on your spouse and children. You will want them to be happy and continue having a meaningful and comfortable life. If you are single, other than your loved one, you might want to give back to society, helping your community even upon your passing. The only way to make it happen is through planning. Or to put it in another words, estate planning is important to every one of us, regardless of your background. Agree, Jeannie?
Yes, thanks, Claudia. I think, yes, I would agree. I think all of the audience like me will also agree that estate and legacy planning are indeed essential for everyone. I think even for single like me and Janice, I think regardless of background and relationship status. So I think whether you have a spouse, children, extended family members, or even a specific cause that you're actually passionate about, I think planning allows you to protect your interests, express your intention, and also ensure that your legacy aligns with your values. So thank you all for your insight on this important topic. So now we will go to our poll 3 today. Are you aware of the factors to consider when making end of life plans in Singapore? So I believe the option is 1, yes, 2, no, or the third one, not sure. So same, if you're on a Facebook, please comment in the chat box. Zoom, just click on the answer. Okay, we'll just wait for 1 to 2 minutes for the result to come in. In the meantime, because I'm so nervous, so as there are so many audience here tonight, so please forgive me as I'm too anxious and nervous. While I'm waiting for the answers, the results are out. Wow, so look like most of our audience choose not sure on these questions. But I think after today's, you all will be able to know the answers. So I think we'll move on to the next question first. You can post your questions in the Q&A. What factors should I prioritize when crafting end of life plans in Singapore? Claudia?
Oh, yeah, okay. Now, to get started, you can firstly organize all your important documents and gather them in one place. The most important document here to me, it refers to your will and the list of your assets. Store them securely and make sure someone that you trust knows about it, and you could register your will with the Singapore Will Registry, or maybe other organizations which have integrated services with Cisco for storage. Secondly, you can also share your funeral wishes. And thirdly, your wishes for when you end up being unable to make decisions for yourself, which is mental incapacitated. Now, I would like to share a little real case that I have personally encountered. Now, this guy, let's call him John. His grandfather passed away some years back. Some of his family members recall that the grandfather had a will. But after hunting all the places, they cannot find it. Out of no choice, John's family had decided to clear his grandfather's estate under intestate law. After nearly 2 years of estate clearance and distribution, John finally gotten his inheritance, which are some watches that are being stored in the safe deposit box. When he opened up the safe deposit box, besides the watches, John found something else inside. Anyone want to make a guess what John get in the safe deposit box? Anyone? Well, he found his grandfather's will. His grandfather's original plan is wasted now and has in fact cost the family extra money and extra time to clear his estate. Worse still, this has caused disharmony among the family. So it is important to have a will. It's also important to be able to retrieve a will and the asset list. How about you? What do you think, Elijah?
Well, that's definitely a very interesting story, Claudia. I think beyond the obvious things like, of course, gathering a list of your assets, you also need to think about your wishes and how you intend to communicate them. What's important is the communication of the wishes, in the sense that it should be very clear and concise with no room for misinterpretation, right? So for example, if let's say, we would say someone's supposed to inherit one particular asset, what are they supposed to do with it, right? Because inheriting is one thing, but, are they prepared to handle it? Do they want to handle it? Or will they just end up selling it off against your wishes, right? So I think all this has to be spelled out very clearly. So it's not just a matter of just writing, you also have to give very clear instructions, right? And often, we think about what should happen when we are gone. We must also realize that likely we'll spend the last few years of our life in ill health. And how will you want your affairs to be handled when you're still around, but incapable of carrying them out, right? And who in the family should have access to this kind of instructions and execute them? So definitely some of the factors that you need to think about, right? Janice, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, the priority first of all is you. What is it that you want to do with your wealth and assets? What dreams do you have? What assets do you have? How do you want it to be distributed? Or who do you want to give to, etc. etc. So it is all about you. As Claudia has mentioned, gather all your important documents at one place, so your family do not need to do treasure hunting. Also, can also plan your own funeral, like after that, do the cremation, ashes put where, etc. And also, like what Elijah has mentioned, if someone to inherit the asset, what are they supposed to do with it? Are they prepared to handle it? Like if somebody is to give me a race car as inheritance, it practically no use. I hardly drive, and I drive really, really slow. Back to you, Jeannie.
Okay, thanks. I think great. I think there's another life experience shared by Claudia. I think really having the will planned correctly is very important. I think our speaker has actually emphasized the holistic nature of end of life planning. I think from legal documents, clear communication, to personal desire and practice of consideration. I think it's about ensuring that your legacy is managed according to your wishes and their loved ones are spared from unnecessary burdens and uncertainties. So let's move on to our next questions. Are there any proactive measures that I can take earlier to prepare for unforeseen events? Maybe Claudia, you can start again.
Okay. Now, we need to plan in advance for a lot of things because no one knows what will happen tomorrow. And it would be good if you can take control of the situation rather than just responding to it after it has happened. We have just discussed a lot of asset and legacy planning and planning for when we pass on. But to plan for unforeseen events like losing our mental capacity or become seriously ill is also very important. I believe many of us has heard about lasting power attorney, advanced medical directive, creating a trust, or even requesting for do not resuscitate if our heart has stopped. In Singapore, euthanasia or mercy killing is not allowed, but receiving or rejecting specific treatment is possible. We can make advanced arrangements to address various situations when we are still alive and slowly and peacefully move on to the end of life stage of our life. Janice, want to share your thoughts?
Yeah. To quote from the MOH, our Ministry of Health website, an AMD, Advanced Medical Directive, is a legal document that you sign in advance to inform the doctor treating you that in the event you become terminally ill or unconscious, you do not want any extraordinary life-sustaining treatment to be used to prolong your life. On the other hand, lasting power attorney, LPA, is a legal document which allows a person to appoint one or more persons to make decisions and act on your behalf in the event you lose mental capacity. That means we are still alive, huh? The decisions involve your personal welfare and property. You can find out more details about all these legal policies through our government website. Elijah will tell you more.
Well, that's very insightful sharing by our two lovely ladies. I would say I'll put it this way in a big picture context for our audience tonight, right? Who do you work so hard for, right? It's for your family, it's for your loved ones, because you're creating dreams, you're creating aspirations for your family. And that's a great thing. We should all have dreams of our future. I call it the picture on the box of your life jigsaw puzzle. So you need to have a clear picture of where you're heading, but those dreams depend on you. They're reliant on your ability to produce these dreams from the skills and expertise that you put in place to do your job or run your business if you're, say, a business owner. If you were to die, fall under a bus or become severely ill, should your family's dreams die with you? I don't think they should. So in which case, I would say you should definitely take steps to make sure that your dreams can continue even if you're not there. It's all about preventive measures that you take to ensure that you can sleep well at night, knowing that all those dreams are protected, right? Regardless of what happens in life. Like Claudia says, no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah. So back to you, Jeannie.
Thanks, Elijah. I think by now, all of us should be aware that there are various crucial aspects of end-of-life planning. And I think, once again, taking proactive steps to prepare for the unexpected can offer peace of mind and safeguard one's interest and value that they are navigating at the later stage of life. So let's move on to the next question. I think just like the audience who I believe will like to know the answer to this question as well. So when is actually the best time to initiate legacy planning for maximum wealth benefits? The speakers, what do you think?
Now is the
Now.
best time.
Wow.
Why wait?
So,
Yeah.
Why wait?
that means now is the best time. I think in that case, I think as highlighted by all speakers for today, I think the urgency in their words actually underscores, I think, the critical importance of initiating end-of-life plannings without delay, which is now. I think the time to start planning for your futures and ensuring your wishes are met is really now. So don't wait. Take action today to ensure that your peace of mind and the well-being of your loved ones. I think speaking of taking action today, let's bring up our next slide. So I believe now that we have a clear ideas on what some financial mistakes to avoid when planning for our loved ones and difference between estate and legacy planning. So through our webinar, you should now understand that end-of-life planning encompass, I think, a broad consideration ranging from, I think, legal arrangement to preserving family dreams, ensuring that medical decisions align with the individual preference. I think before we move on to our Q&A session, we welcome you to connect with our PhillipCapital or any of our FA's financial specialists tonight with their QR code from the screen. And if all of you have any questions, you can scan the QR code to chat with them. They are actually active in social media and are always very generous in sharing and broadcasting value-added financial tips to their clients and also followers. So they are also expanding, I think, their teams and welcome like-minded individuals like you to explore more with them. So on the right side is our website and phone number, which you can contact us as well. So for those who are enjoying our webinar like this one, we would like to stay connected with you, and you can stay connected with us to receive more updates. Just give us a like on our Facebook page. You can scan the QR code from the screen as well. So now let's go on with our Q&A session for today. So let me read out the questions for today. So I think Chai Bing, thank you for your question. I think your question is, must the will be written by a lawyer? Maybe Elijah, would you mind helping in this question?
No problem. I'll take this one. Okay, so yes, Chai-Min, thanks for your question. Actually, no, a will doesn't need to be written by a lawyer. It's something that a lot of people think, that it must be done this way, but actually no. The actual requirements for a valid will in Singapore, first thing, of course, the will must be committed in writing. The second one is the person making the will, or better known as a testator, he or she must be at least 21 years old. Third requirement, the testator must sign at the foot of the will. Fourth requirement, the signature must be witnessed by 2 or more witnesses who also must sign in the testator's presence. And lastly, these 2 witnesses cannot be beneficiaries of the will. And nowhere is it mentioned that it must be a lawyer who needs to draft the will. So that's just to clear up the air on that. So no, you don't need a lawyer to write the will. Yeah. Hope that answered your question.
Okay, thanks, Elijah. So I'll go on to our next question for the day. So maybe I think Kyung-Ching, thanks for your question. So your question is, which take precedence, will or nomination? Maybe Claudia, would you want to take this question?
Okay, now firstly, Kyung-Chin, if I call your name correctly, will and nomination. Now, nomination is only specific to certain assets, not all your assets. Meaning, if you want to do nomination, you can do it for your insurance policy as well as CPF. Okay, but you cannot do nomination on your bank account. You cannot do nomination on your investment. So nomination, it's specific to certain things. So the rest of the asset, you can only capture it via a will distribution. So it's both are important, but it's actually something that we may want to do it concurrently. I hope that answers your question, Kyung-Chin.
Thanks, Claudia. I hope it answered your questions. So we'll take the next question. Moon Ching, I think your question is, what if there are changes to assets, and what if there are changes to marital status?
Can I answer this question?
Sure.
Okay. Now, in Singapore, if you are divorced, change in marital status, you are divorced, nothing will happen to your nomination, nothing will happen to your will arrangement. But if a new marriage take place, meaning you remarriage, then the previous will be void. So you have to make a new will arrangement. But whereas for asset, it's different. Assets may not be kept within the will. You may have a separate asset list. Just want to make sure that your lists are clear and it can be found. And then distribution-wise, so long there's no changes, then your will, you can maintain it. That's my answer.
Oh, thanks, Claudia. Okay, I think there's another question from Anson. The question is, I think the list of assets we have when we have passed on, how should we make known to the beneficiary? List them down in the will? Janice, would you like to answer this question?
You do not list your assets in the will. If you do that, then every time you change your asset, you got to change your will, and that costs money. So usually what my advice to my client is, after you set the will already, do a list of schedule of assets and put it together with your will and file it in a place together, like with your insurance. So all these are in one folder. So assuming you have a advisor, put your advisor name card there too, the somebody that manage all your portfolio. So you have a one-stop station, just a whole chunk of assets that they can access to. So the list of assets you can update as and when there's changes. Okay, for example, you have different bank account, right? You don't have to put in your how much money in that bank. You just have to put down your bank account. Or maybe your Shopee Pay got some money, you can put down there your scheduled asset. But you do not need to put all this into your will. Does that answer your question, Anson?
I believe it answers the question. I think there's another questions with Xiam Ling. Does finding the will override the estate's process? Because anyone want to take up this question?
Okay. Now, finding a will does
Mm.
not override the intestate process. Let's put it this way, it allows time, the court allows some time for the family member to produce the will if they can find it. So if they cannot find it, the asset will be frozen and the family member will not have anything. So it depends on how long the family member wants to find the will. But of course, it cannot be 10, 20 years down the road. The family member usually will sort out themselves. And then if they cannot find the will within perhaps a couple of months, and once they decide, they may proceed with intestate. It's just like the life cases that I shared just now. My client, we call it John. Yeah, his family member exactly experienced that. Cannot find a will, even though they know they have no choice but to proceed with intestate law. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Claudia. I think we'll take last question for the day. There's one question by Lydia. Thanks for your question. I think the question is, insurance will pay out according to nomination and not according to the will, right? Elijah, maybe you want to answer this question?
Okay, so this of course depends on your nomination. Is it valid or not? Because at the point when the payout is supposed to occur, if it's not valid, then we will fall back to, for example, the will. But then there is also an issue here, which is how was your will worded, right? So it's actually very important to make sure that in the process of writing the will, right, your clauses are watertight. So, for example, one of the things I often see being done is that in the will you can state that if an insurance policy has no nomination, okay, then you should follow the distribution stated in the will. And if the insurance policy has a nomination, then follow the nomination as per the insurance policy. So you add a clause like that, right, into your will, then it becomes very watertight because a policy either has a valid nomination or it doesn't. So you just got to, take care of the case where maybe, we often buy so many policies. So it is possible that we may have forgotten one or two policies and it slips through the cracks, right? So make sure that not only should you have a nomination done for your policies, right? But in your will, you need to add clauses that make this watertight so that ultimately when the time comes to pay out all these monies, there is no dispute, because the dispute is what will really stress every single person out. Yeah, so that's something you need to consider. Yeah.
Thanks, Elijah. I think that's the end of our webinar. I think if you still have further questions, I think you can contact our speakers today. I think through the QR code that they have shared. I mean from the slides previously, or maybe you can just call us based on the numbers that we have just shared in our presentation as well. Maybe I'll go to the next slide. I think there is the QR code for you to contact them, I mean our speakers as well. So before we end this wonderful session, right, with our speakers tonight, I think we would like them to actually share their final tips with the audience. So maybe start with you, Claudia.
Okay, start your planning today. Don't be afraid to explore how you could utilize planning to your own advantage. Talk to your financial advisor, talk to your estate planner, and have your estate and legacy planning done. You can always change and improve on your planning subsequently. Janice?
My tips is one step at a time. The key is the one step. Usually we just procrastinate. So go and do your CPF nomination. It's free. You can start making a CPF nomination online by logging into your CPF digital service using your SingPass. Speak to your financial advisor. Start now. That's the key. Start now. Elijah?
Well, I would say don't leave things to chance. Estate and legacy planning it can and will have a positive and lasting impact, provided you put plans in place and execute them. So take that first step. Yeah. Jeannie, back to you.
Okay. I think thanks all to our speakers tonight. I think our speakers actually here urging you to take action. I think you should seek professional advice and actually start your end of life planning journey, even starting from today. So whether is it reviewing the existing plan or making initial arrangement starts today. So taking and planning for the futures is a proactive step as mentioned. So you really have to take a, I mean, do the will nomination now. So as mentioned, their QR code is here. Feel free to contact them if you have further questions, or you can just send an email to us as well. So once again, you may we have come to the end of our session today. So I would like to thank our 3 expert speakers for their unreserved and open sharing, and a big thank you to everyone who have stayed with us till thus far. So do join us for our future Ask Me Anything episode as well. We love to have you here again. See you and good night.
Good night.